I'm delighted to be sitting here with Rob Zaffiris. Rob, introduce yourself and tell me, where are we?
We are at a Shakespeare bookstore, 2020 Broadway on the Upper West Side. And yes, I am Rob Zaffiris, and I'm president and COO of Shakespeare Book Company.
And this is a relatively new bookstore, correct?
Yes, we've been open a little bit over a year, Steve, to great fanfare. This is our probably 14th month that we're open, and we're delighted to be back serving the community.
Well, Rob, you and I have had the opportunity to have been working together and promoting books and reading for well over a decade now. So why don't you share with me a little bit of your earlier history that led up to Shakespeare and Company?
So I was with HarperCollins Publishers for over 20 years. Mostly working in a corporate role in the area of new business development, corporate development, and strategy. So my role there was primarily how do we expand the publishing business at Harper, whether it was through acquisition or whether it was through new book channels. Or new technology to continue to bring books to the masses, because that's always what the objective is of publishers. And now I've shifted to the retail side, which is one step closer.
Well, so you've seen over those 20 years a variety of trends in book selling. What led you to believe that this is now the space for you to apply yourself and your experience? Being here on a busy main street, as if I was at the London Book Fair, we'd call it a high street bookstore.
Yes.
So what led you to believe this is your point of engagement now?
That's a great question. And it was a challenge for me that I wanted to take on, because I really do think the time is now and here for folks to step into the physical book selling arena. As you know, in the market, it's quite diverse and in some way partitioned. You have Amazon on one side, the huge behemoth online, and then you have independent bookstores on the other end, which are thriving, but undercapitalized and don't have the ability to scale. And then we have Barnes & Noble in the middle, who, as you know, is struggling and trying to find themselves and reinvent themselves. So for us, we feel there's a huge opportunity in the book market to kind of scale the small footprint indie store concept and bring it to a national level, really.
So we're in one of 3 existing locations. Where are the other 2?
Correct. The other bookstore is adjacent on the east side at 69th and Lexington, and then we have one down in Philadelphia.
So there are some unique attributes to this particular Shakespeare and Company format. What do they include?
Well, first is the store format. We're a small 2,500 to 3,000 square footprint store, and we have 3 unique elements. One is having a cafe, 2 is having a curated bookstore, and 3 is having our Espresso Book Machine technology, which can print a book in about 5 minutes.
Well, I want to go back and learn a little bit more about each of those 3 aspects. So is there anything particular? I'm a coffee lover. So tell me about the coffee you're serving, or anything that might attract our readers to want to come in just for the cafe experience.
Well, we serve La Colombe coffee, which is a high-end coffee, absolutely delicious. And we have fully trained baristas. So you're not getting poured coffee, you're getting specialty coffee brewed to your liking. And really, the cafe and the bookstore and the machine actually work together. So I should mention a little bit about that in terms of what we're striving to achieve, which is really the curated bookstore, the customer service element, and then the community. And it really does start with the fundamentals in terms of we are a neighborhood bookstore, but then we have these 3 elements. And the cafe is a great way to bring in people multiple times per week, as opposed to maybe once a month, let's say, when they want to buy a book. So it's about seeing people on a daily basis. It's about getting to know them by name. It's about servicing them, not only in a cafe environment, but also in a bookstore environment, and really creating, through our technology, an offering that we think is compelling and can compete with the other booksellers.
Well, we'll get to the Espresso machine in a moment. Tell me a little bit about the concept or the strategy around the curation. For example, is this location any different in what it's carrying in inventory than on the east side or in your Philadelphia store?
Yes, absolutely. We do central buying, but then for most new releases and popular books. But then when it comes to local tastes and trends, we let our booksellers actually prepare a list on a monthly basis and interact with our buyers to place the orders to have a curated selection of books that are unique for this neighborhood. Obviously, the Upper West Side is a little bit more art-driven. It's a little bit more culturally diverse. So we try to stock and meet those needs of the consumer. I should say, in addition to that, our booksellers, one of the fabulous things about the creation is we have a wall up front, which is really recommendations, staff recommendations. And you'll see later that you can pretty much find a book for almost any taste, whether it's fiction or mystery or biography. Our staff will make recommendations to our clients.
Now, on the community element, as a local bookseller trying to adapt to the tastes of your neighborhood, what other community events or activities that Shakespeare Company is seeking to either promote or be participating in?
Well, we hold typically 2 to 3 events a week at the store, and they'll range from an author coming in to read, or a book club often meets to discuss the book. And in some cases, the author is here, and in some cases, the author is not. But it's really a way to engage with the community so that they have a venue, they have a space to come to talk and dialogue. In fact, prior to this meeting, I was just over at our East Side store, and there was a table literally of 10 people sitting around having coffee and actually talking about a book. And this was not a planned event. Which I thought was incredibly interesting in the sense that it was just local people deciding, hey, I want to get together for a cup of coffee and sit down to talk about a book.
As you're familiar with myself and OverDrive, you know we're a mission-based company and have had the great pleasure, honor of helping to support a number of public institutions dedicated to helping communities improve their outcomes, their lives, their careers through books and reading. Where do you feel the role of the local indie bookseller is in helping to promote people to appreciate and fall in love with their next great book, or even as an inspiration for their family or their children to select books and reading versus all the other media options they have today?
Absolutely. Well, we take that commitment and that responsibility obviously quite serious. It goes back to my first comments about expanding and making books widely available. That's really, we think there's a gap in the market. And then in terms of the particular indie bookstore, that whether it's our West Side store, our East Side store, or any other store, it's creating a venue and a dialogue with the community. And I do spend more time at the store. At first, to be honest, I came from a corporate environment. It was different. But then I listened to the customers. I talked to the customers. Oh, can we help you find something? And often it's a mother for one of their children or for a friend. And it's really quite rewarding to have that interaction and then promoting the literacy and promoting and getting something in the hands of a reader that can bring joy.
Well, I can compliment your team here. The moment I walked in the door, I was greeted by one of the first 2 Michaels I met within about 90 seconds. And it is a very welcoming and open environment to come in and explore and even just discover opportunities to fall in love with a new author or a new topic. Let me ask you now something that's extraordinarily unique about this footprint is you actually claim to have in print 1 million+ titles. How is that possible?
Well, it's a combination of really about the 80-20 rule. So as you know, most publishers come out with a hardcover in their first format, right? So we stock all the new releases in hardcover, as well as all the popular backlist books. And we, at this small store, which is a little small, we hold about 12,000 titles on the shelves. And that will represent 80 to 90% of the sales. But how we really get the depth and the breadth of the catalog is through our Espresso Book Machine, where we have millions of titles. Some are public domain, but we do have many large publishers in the program, as well as starting to participate in the program. So over time, that catalog will grow in the Espresso Book Machine. So to the extent you find that we don't have something on the shelf and you want that particular book, we can print a perfect bound version, which is the paperback version, identical to what the publishers print in their second format, which usually comes out about a year later, on the machine. So it's really about bringing a virtual inventory to the store via our machine to create a great customer experience.
So I want to make sure everyone understands how this Expresso machine works. Is it a self-contained print shop? Is there a little printer in there, selecting the book, setting the type, pulling the cover, binding it? Why don't you walk me through step by step how a book from, and I'm going to put in an order in a moment here, but just give me the generic explanation. What is the Expresso Book Machine?
Well, in short, it's a 3D printer, is really what it comes down to. And you come from a technology background on ebook and audio side. So just as there's a file that you would ultimately distribute to a consumer for consumption in a digital format in your world, in our world, those same digital files can reside within the machine on our network. And then what we can do is, at the press of a button, what it does, it will formulate those printer files and produce the book on the 3D printer in black and white for the interior, and then a full color cover. And again, the litmus test is ultimately, would it satisfy the author? Would it satisfy the publisher? Because they have a high level of scrutiny, understandably, and we've been able to overcome that.
So does this also print books of, I would imagine, obviously, the number of pages is not much an issue. Does it do also different book sizes, trim sizes, from smaller format to large?
Yes, absolutely. There's flexibility in terms of length, up to 800 pages. And then in terms of the format, anything under really 8.5 by 11, a standard page size, can be accommodated. It needs to be a little shorter to accommodate for the spine and the trim, but that's basically it.
As this is, and as you indicated, your catalog is growing. So you already have some major trade publishers supplying you their entire catalog. So on demand, customer can walk in, think of a book, and if it's available on your Expresso machine, while they wait, you're creating the product, handing it hot off the press. Would that be a fair statement?
That is a true statement. It is hot off the press because it is warm. And I'll clarify, one of the things that we've been doing, one of the major publishers, HarperCollins, has all their backlist titles. Anything 6 months past publication for a paperback is in our catalog. And we're beginning to work with the others to onboard their titles. Obviously, what they want to see is more stores,
Sure.
as a vehicle for mass distribution, if you will. But we're well on our way to expanding, and we're starting to, if you will, convince publishers that this is something that's good, that it can result in incremental sales. And that's an area that I'm sure you very well know is a challenge often to convince publishers.
It's only taken me 30 years to get the trust of most publishers, but I understand. And once you start demonstrating success and demand and creating additional options for customers to discover and buy the product, I think you'll do well. Let me ask you, this would probably give you the capability to expand into additional specific audiences. So eventually, I would imagine you might have the book in multiple languages. So if somebody wanted one of the Michael Crichton Harper titles in the multiple languages, that might be also an option. Is that something contemplated or available today?
Absolutely. I think you know that there's been a big trend to bring foreign language books into the U.S. As a means for making those books available. And most of the time, it's a specific request. So yes, we can accommodate foreign language printing as long as the file is to our specifications. It really unlocks, and that's why when we talk about 1 million books, it's really quite incredible. And we think in some capacity disruptive, but in another capacity just forward thinking. I'll give you an example. Some of the great retailers nowadays, Bonobos, physical retailer who sell clothing, right? They display it, limited selection, and then they'll ship it to your house from their warehouse. Or Casper is another one, which is becoming very popular. Mattresses, right? They'll ship it to you. So we feel we're one step ahead, actually, because we, again, bring the warehouse into the store, and it's customer instant gratification, which in some regard is really cool.
Well, it gives them a chance to continue shopping for a few minutes and buy their latte and browse around.
Absolutely.
As you know, serving a community that tries to be as inclusive as possible, I'm also thinking there may be an opportunity for you to offer for many of these titles, making them all available in large print. Because large print, as you know, as we're all not getting younger, is becoming more and more a preferred format for ease of reading. So I see a lot of upside for this capability.
Absolutely. And again, publishers do print large format books, but sometimes it's hard for them to carry multiple formats for obvious reasons. So it's really just a font scaling issue, which is not that big of a challenge for us. And especially, obviously, the page length increases. But when you think of a typical book, 360 pages or so, and it expands by another 50 pages, not an issue for us.
Well, Rob, I've already been a customer of this Shakespeare Company location, but I want to put in another order. Since we're talking about on-demand printing and the great catalog of Harper titles, I'm a big fan of Jeffrey Moore and his book about how new technologies disrupt existing markets. The first in a series is one of my favorite, Crossing the Chasm. Is that something I can ask your team to print on demand and allow me to purchase while I'm here today?
Absolutely. That's a staple, a backlist book that we can certainly print. And I think the good news is because we're all business people, the economics to the publisher are identical. The economics to the consumer are identical. So it's really a fabulous opportunity to get that product into your hands today. Yes.
Well, it's a staple of books I recommend to my team. And when people ask what inspired me during the development and growth of OverDrive. So I look forward to purchasing one from your team this morning. The store is named after one of the greatest literary figures of all time. How was it selected?
To be honest, I don't know if you know this, but Shakespeare Company was a New York bookstore chain, had multiple stores in New York City. And then the last remaining one was scheduled to close in about 2014-15, and the owner, one of the owners, Dane Neller, actually bought it out of before it went into bankruptcy, and bought the last remaining store on the east side. So we felt it was so iconic that we would keep the name, and it's somewhat ironic in the sense that there used to be a store up here on the Upper West Side, so we reopened on purpose, if you will, on the Upper West Side to great fanfare, and people saying you brought back the Upper West Side Shakespeare Company store, which is fabulous.
Now, the business model in Shakespeare Company now opening a second and a third location is obviously to scale up the business. Tell me a little bit about the strategy now that you've had a little over a year of retail experience at this location. What's the plan for 2020?
The plan for 2020 is to quickly, within the next 12 months, get to about 10 stores. And there's a couple of critical reasons for that. One, you can leverage your back office, meaning your accounting department, your purchasing department, your supplies. But more importantly, you start to get recognition with the publishers, and you can start to coordinate across your multiple stores and working with publishers more effectively. And again, coming back to the content, HarperCollins has been very supportive of this business and understands that it's imperative to reach new customers with their entire catalog. So as we expand, other publishers will begin to participate more willingly. And as I said before, we are having those conversations, and hopefully we're at the tipping point to bring it to scale.
What type of investment, if, let's say, other trade publishers, large or small, or nonfiction, reference, educational houses, want to be part of the Expresso catalog? What is their investment, or what are the steps?
The investment is small. It's a very short contract to say, yes, we agree that you can sell the content in your store via the Espresso Book Machine, and it's not a separate set of rights. It's something that they have available to them. And then secondarily, it's just organizing their printer-ready files and creating an onboarding process where we would ingest the content onto our servers, or if they prefer to leave them on their servers, we can have an interface. But it's really about organizing their files that they have. Most of them work with digital printers and digital vendors in other capacities, so it's not that difficult. In some cases, we get a little resistant from the folks who do the physical printing, because they're the ones who control the files. But I should say that the Espresso Book Machine is a supplement. It's not a replacement. We're not promoting a kiosk store where you print a book. We want to represent thousands of titles, and we want to be able to augment the customer experience if we don't have something in stock.
And are you tracking demand? Do you see where there's unmet demand, where publishers should be thinking of getting in front of you sooner versus later because they're losing sales?
Absolutely. Every day we have 10 to 20 customers who come in and ask for a book that we don't have. So that's really the litmus test. And when you think about an individual bookstore, if you're getting 10 to 20 requests, that's fairly significant.
Well, multiply that times your growing locations, and I'm sure all trade houses are going to want to figure out how they can contact you. And I'm sure that'll be part of this piece. Well, Rob, let me thank you. I know we're going to take a look around the store, and I'm excited to share with our readers the progress you're making in promoting the product that everyone tuning into this video is all in love with. We all love books, we all love reading, and we're very delighted you could share with us another component of helping all of us improve our lives through books and reading. Thank you.